Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's lesson in institutional correction. Now, for today, we are going to talk about the different circumstances on when can an inmate be outside. So, transfer inmates. Transfer an inmate may be transferred by the prison director upon the recommendation of the superintendent. So, kung sino yung in charge ng prison, siya yung superintendent. Okay? So, kung nag-recommend yung in charge ng isang prison institution na i-transfer yung isang inmate, so dapat, kung hindi i-approve ng director, of course, walang mangyayari. It will only happen if approved by the prison director, but only with the recommendation. Kasi yung approval ng director is based din sa recommendation ng superintendent. Okay? So, upon the recommendation of the superintendent concerned to another prison facility to bring said inmate closer to family or as part of his rehabilitation program. So, it's either of these two. It's either mapalapit siya sa kanyang family kasi yung family can provide yung, let's say, support, magkaroon ng visit, and this can really help on the rehabilitation of the inmate. But not at all times na ganun yung case, meron din yung iba na, let's say, kahit na malapit, pero galit yung family, so it's much better na nasa malayo siya. It just depends on the, what we call, assessment of the superintendent. Okay? Transfer of an insane inmate. An inmate who has been confirmed to be mentally abnormal or insane may be transferred to mental hospital with the approval of the prison director. So, of course, wala nang recommendation galing sa superintendent. Pero, dapat it must be proven by a doctor na meron talagang siyang mental abnormality. Okay, or he is insane. Okay, and usually these doctors are psychologists or psychiatrists. Next is transfer of an inmate to a stockade of the armed forces of the Philippines. Now, stockade, parang isang small cell ito ng armed forces, but it has different functions. Pwede siyang gamitin perimeter sa isang kampo ng armed forces. At the same time, they can use those prisoners to help them in some other chores. So, ang allowed lang ng mga inmates doon ay yung mga minimum security risk. Yung mga hindi talaga mga hardcore criminals. Okay? Next is transfer of inmates not eligible to be colonist to a prison and penal farm. Now, colonist, ito yung mga talagang naninirahan na sa isang penal farm. Okay? Upon the recommendation of the classification board, the director may also transfer to a prison and penal farm an inmate who, although not eligible for classification as a colonist, kahit na hindi siya colonist, he is still allowed kapag he is physically and psychologically fit to absorb the rehabilitative program in the colony, and that assignment is the therapeutically indicated. So, um, isang classification ng para maka-apply ka bilang isang colonist, yung kung malipat ka sa isang penal farm, is yung mag-asawa kayo. You both did the same crime, tapos nakulong kayo sa isang same institution. So, ililipat kayong dalawa. It's possible na ilipat kayo sa isang prison and penal farm institution in which you can, katulad ng doon sa Puerto Princesa na pwede kang magtayo ng sarili mong bahay, yung ganon. So, Kung hindi ka classified as a colonist, pwede ka rin, but with proper recommendations pa rin upon the classification board. Okay? Kasi all of this, these procedures, these requirements are just all for the um, treatment or the what we call this, the rehabilitation of the inmate. Okay, next is transfer of an inmate to provincial jail and vice versa. So the President of the Philippines may direct, as the occasion may require, the transfer of inmates from the national prison to a provincial or vice versa. Pwede ding provincial to national or national to provincial. The expenses for such transfer shall be borne by the Bureau except the cost of escort service which shall be provided by the Philippine National Police. So, okay, that's very clear kung sino yung mag-shoulder sa expenses. So, sa escort, yung PNP. Yung expenses sa pag-transfer, yung bureau. Okay? Pero, it's about transfer of inmate. We're talking about transfer of inmate from provincial to national. So, it's either nakakommit siya ng ibang crime nung nasa provincial jail pa siya while he is serving. So, ililipat siya sa national. But, hindi yan in this case. Nasa ano kasi yan sa President ng Philippines. Yung what we call this, yung executive clemency niya na it's either you will be pardoned or mabawasan yung penalty mo. I just forgot the term. Yes, may power yung president na magpababa ng remaining sentence mo. Okay? Next is, okay, before any transfer, any inmate shall undergo mental and physical examination. Okay? In every before every transfer. Ganun talaga yan. Now, as I said earlier, this lesson for today is not just about transfer from one institution to another, but also about the different situations in where the inmates are allowed outside the institution. Okay, first is movement of inmate outside confinement facility. The superintendent of the prison may authorize an inmate to be taken out of prison in the following instances. First, to appear in court or other government agency as directed by the competent authority. Second, for medical examination, treatment, or hospitalization in an outside clinic or hospital. And third is to view the remains of a deceased relative. So, una is pagtawagin ng court, may summon. Second is for yung kapag may injury or may sakit. Third is yung kung may patay siya na relative. Of course, meron itong mga, let's say, mga restrictions pa rin. Approval by a Secretary of Outside Movement. Okay. Remember ha? Hindi ito right. This is just a privilege. So, it needs approval of someone with authority. Now, prior approval of the Secretary of Justice, yung highest ranking person sa DOJ, Department of Justice, yung Secretary of Justice shall be required. So, yung approval niya for the outside movements of an national believed prison or correctional institute for women inmates as provided in the instances prior to this slide. So, eto mga instances na dapat talaga ng approval is yung first, kung inmate ka sa bilibid, tapos etong tatlo yung nangyari. Okay? Ito. So, kailangan talaga. Kasi kapag hindi inapprove ng Secretary of Justice, of course, they are not allowed to go outside. except for those who are not in the bilibid. Yung mga yung mga preso na hindi nakakulong sa bilibid, kapag isinomon sila, kapag need nila ng medical attention, or dito may deceased relative sila, hindi na kailangan ng approval ng secretary. Okay? Because laws are very literal, especially procedures. Now, outside movements of death convicts, a death convict shall not be allowed to leave his place of confinement except for the urgent treatment or diagnosis of a life-threatening or serious ailments. Grabe na talaga yung sitwasyon niya. If the diagnosis cannot be done or the treatment, if the diagnosis cannot be done, or the treatment in the prison hospital. Okay. So, kapag hindi magawa sa loob ng prison hospital, tsaka siya allowed na lumabas. But the funny thing is, nasa death row na siya. Di ba? Bakit pa kailangan, i-treat pa siya? Well, anyways, um, of course, decisions about um, death row can be stopped by the president. Merong tawag dyan. I still forgot pa rin. Kasi ganito kasi yan. Kapag grabe yung crime, tapos inosente ka, then nalagay ka sa death row, sayang naman kung makonvict or mabitay yung taong inosente, tapos later on kalaunan, pagkatapos na patay ka na, of course, it will be then proven na you are innocent. Sayang naman, di ba? Or, or baka, may chance pa na someone, yung anak ng nakulong na nasa death row is, was really trying to prove his father's innocence. Tapos, nagkaroon ng ulcer. Just an example. So, kapag pababayaan yan, of course, sayang din naman yung efforts ng mga tao who are trying to prove his innocence. Kasi, in our laws, it is better to have um, 10 criminals in the society than to have one innocent person inside the jail. Okay? So, next is basis of court appearance. Yung mag-appear ka sa court. Appear tayo. Okay, the court appearance of inmates shall be based on subpoena issued by the court as endorsed by the director. Okay, of course, court mo yung court ang mag-send ng subpoena or summon na they need the presence of the inmate. It's either baka yan, mag mag-testify, but pwede namang hindi present yung inmate doon sa whole process, pero except on one single process. Dapat present siya doon sa pag-enter ng kanyang plea. Yung pagsabi ng guilty siya or hindi siya guilty. And then laterwards, so matutuloy na yung kanyang kaso. So, meron ng presentation of witnesses, ganon. Before all of that, if you are charged with a crime, of course, you will be asked, okay, do you plead guilty or not guilty? So, in that stage, dapat always present talaga yung inmate na yan, kung sino yung defendant or accused. Okay? Court appearance of life-termer or yung mga nahatulan ng life imprisonment or death convict. No inmate sentenced to death or life imprisonment confined in the National Bilibid prisons shall be brought outside said prison for appearance or attendance in any court except with the Supreme Court. See? Kailangan talaga ng approval ng Supreme Court. And of course, Hindi talaga basta-basta kasi maraming cases yang inaatupag yang Supreme Court. So, medyo matatagalan talaga. Okay? But it does not necessarily say that doon sa Supreme Court mag-appear ang inmate. But pwede din siyang mag-appear doon sa RTC kung sino yung hawak ng kanyang kaso, but kailangan pang mag-ask ng permission. Kailangan talagang ng authorization. The national, New Bilibid prisons pala, hindi national. The New Bilibid prisons, Cavite and Laguna, who required appearance or attendance in any judicial proceeding of an NBP, death convict, or life termer to conduct such proceeding within the premises of the said prison. So basically, this is all about kailangan talaga nilang mananghid sa Supreme Court, magpaalam. Okay? Next is application to view the remains of deceased relatives with supporting documents. Na eto na itang ang pangatlo sa mga reasons on when sila allowed outside. It is to view the remains of the body of their dead relative. Yung nasa ano pa, nasa haya pa. Ano pa tawag sa English dyan? I really forgot. Well, anyway, a minimum or medium security inmate may, dapat hindi maximum upon written application, be allowed by the superintendent to view the remains of the following relatives upon written application and submission of the original or certified true copies of the death certificate, the burial permit, and other necessary document. So in this case, nasa discretion ng superintendent kung sino yung nagmamanage ng prison na yun. Kung papayagan ba niya na na bumisita sa lamay yung inmate ng kanyang relative o lamay ng kanyang relative ng inmate. So, nasa discretion niya yan ng superintendent. Basta yung inmate is classified as minimum or medium security. Diba? Last time, meron tayong tungkol sa classifications. Okay. Pero dapat present yung mga etong mga dapat may written application, may death certificate. It's either original or certified true copy, burial permit, at saka other necessary documents. Dito, let's say kung ang namatay is asawa, so kailangan ng marriage contract. Kung namatay ay brother, sister, father, grandmother, of course, kailangan ng mga birth certificates that will prove that they are really relatives. So basically, other documents will only prove that they are related to each other. So next is when to file application. The application to view the remains of a deceased relative and all its supporting documents shall be filed with the superintendent at least 2 days before the enjoyment of the privilege sought. So, kung maghatid ka ngayon and it's Monday, then it will be approved on Wednesday. You will be allowed. Kasi the prison will also have preparations. They have to prepare for it. Kung sino yung mag-duty, kung ilan yung kailangan they have to plan for it. Kasi inmate kasi yan, pinapayaga lumabas para tumingin. Mahirap na kung makatakas. That will show incompetence sa part ng prison. Okay? So, please remember this 2 days. Duration of privilege. So, how long? Kapag ma-approve at nasa labas ka na, so how long? How long siya dapat nasa labas? The inmate may be allowed more or less 3 hours to view the deceased relative in the place where the remains lie in state, but shall not be allowed to pass any other place in transit or to join funeral cortege. So, allowed lang siya mag-view, tumingin sa lamay. sa patay na katawan sa loob ng kabaong. Hindi siya allowed na sumama sa paghatid. Of course, that is the funeral cortege. So, I think that's it for the privileges of seeing a dead relative. But in the case sa Dipolog, dito I think mga 6 years ago, merong student, graduating student siya, nahuli siya tsaka nakulong kasi dahil sa drugs, pagbebenta. Well, he was allowed by the prison superintendent to attend graduation. Pero of course, with escort. So, I don't know, parang medyo may influence talaga kaya nabigyan ng ano, ng napayagan. So, I think special cases like this really do exist because dapat ang yung inmate is only a minimum or a medium security risk. Diyan yung may discretion yung superintendent. And that superintendent must also report his activities. Meron din silang monthly reporting. Okay? It is to ensure na hindi sila lumabag sa kanilang mga duties or they are also doing their duties. Okay, next is distance of travel. The privilege may be enjoyed only if the deceased relatives is in place within a radius of 30 kilometers by road from the prison. So, medyo malayo-layo na rin. Parang 20-minute travel. Where the distance is more than 30 kilometers, the privilege may be extended if the inmates can leave and return to his place of confinement during daytime. So pwede pa rin. May exception pa rin kung more than. As long as makakabalik siya sa institution yung before mag-sunset tsaka same date. So, parang useless pa rin magbigay ng 30 kilometers, no? Kasi it is not indicated on uh, kung ilan yung extended number of kilometers na allowed as long as mabalik. So, pwede ding, let's say, Mindanao to Manila, right? As long as mabalik so para ding useless din yung time. I think mag-start yung 3 hours sa pagdating mo. I think it's it kasi yung travel, it spends time, no? So, here are the rights and privileges of inmates. Rights of inmates. So, bagong topic na naman, subtopic. An inmate shall have the following basic rights. Now, etong rights, you can claim for it, you can demand for it. While in the privilege, you cannot demand. Binibigay ito sa'yo. Etong rights, dapat ibigay ito sa'yo. Okay, first right is to receive compensation for labor they perform. So, kapag meron silang labor, let's say, nagtanim sila, so dapat meron din silang compensation doon. It's either kahit hindi sahod, basta, let's say, nagtanim sila ng corn. Kapag nagkaroon na ng harvesting, so may part sila doon. Meron silang a portion sa kung ano yung kita. Next is to be credited with time allowances for good conduct and loyalty. Of course, eto yan. Kapag, let's say, good conduct, let's say, for a number of months, wala kang, hindi ka sumali sa mga gulo, or, for instance, dito sa loyalty, kapag nasira yung prison dahil sa any event, earthquake, baha, or so meron kang choice na lumayas, tumakas, but you remained. So you have the right to demand kanang kanang reward for being loyal. So, may katumbas yan sa law kung ilan. Okay, next is to send and receive mail matters. Understandable. To practice their religion or observe their faith. Of course, kailangan wala ding discrimination. To receive authorized visitors, to ventilate their grievances through proper channels. Of course, kung meron sila mga reklamo, so dapat isumbong nila kung sa grievance committee kung meron sila. Kung wala, of course, doon tayo sa direct supervisor. Next is to receive death benefits and pecuniary aid for injuries. So, kapag namatay ka in the process, of course, kung sino yung beneficiary mo, dapat makatanggap ng death benefit. The benefit of your death. It's funny, no? Okay. And pecuniary aid. So, monetary aid kapag ikaw ay na-injured. Of course, dapat dahil yung injury mo is hindi dahil sa ginawa mo. Of course, it could be while in the, let's say, process of doing your your obligations or responsibilities. So, kapag na-injured ka dyan, so you have the right to demand for pecuniary aid or monetary aid. Next is the privilege of inmates. So, they are allowed to attend or participate in any entertainment or athletic activity with the prison reservation. Of course, merong mga events sa loob ng isang prison. It depends kapag papayagan sila. Now, in the event na um, merong event, so not at all time na pinapayagan sila. Of course, the superintendent will place some, let's say, requirements or kung sino ba yung allowed na sumali or manood. Okay? Now, read books and other reading materials in the library. Of course, not all are allowed. Next is smoke cigar and cigarettes except in prohibited places. Understandable. Participate in civic, religious, and other activities authorized by prison authorities. Receive gifts and prepared food from visitors subject to inspection. Now, all of these are just privileges. Take note, you cannot demand a privilege. You can only wait it to be given to you. At kapag qualified ka din. Okay? Rights of detainees, the last part. A detainee may, aside from the rights and privileges, enjoy the final. Okay. Aside from the rights and privileges enjoyed by an inmate, to wear civilian clothes, to grow his hair in his customary style. So, the prison cannot force a detainee to wear other clothes, let's say, a prison uniform. Hindi nila mapipilit. Kasi that is the right of the detainee. Hindi pa siya convicted. Kailangan pang improve. And pagkatapos, yung hair niya, hindi talaga kung ano um, yung haircut style na para sa prison. He is allowed to choose kung ano yung gusto niyang style. Yan kung isa pa siyang detainee. Now, this lesson ends for today. So, next meeting, we will talk about prison labor and role and regulations implemented in the prison institution. Okay, so I think that's it. So, what else? Eto. Kung sino yung makalagay sa comment section ng buong pangalan ko, including middle name, may 50 peso load kayo. And of course, wag lang yan, isalin nyo na rin yung cellphone number. Of course, edited comments will not be included, okay? Automatic invalid. Okay, I think that's it. So, good luck. See you next time.